Okay, so good morning, everybody. Once again, maybe for the last time today and this week. And welcome to this last season of the summer course on strengthening European identity through culture and education, how to manage it. We had 5 intensive days of teaching, academic, of lessons, and with many very different topics from many very different perspectives that we try to put together to deal with this difficult topic of European identity and how culture and education can be a pillar to foster it and to strengthen this. We hope that you got something from this, that it was useful for you to have these 4.5 days of course, that you take something with you back home. But I'm sure that you had many doubts. I asked you a couple of days ago to work a little bit on all these topics, to reflect on how useful that was for you, on mainly doubts you want to share with others, or maybe you want us to solve to you, and also on sharing your thoughts, your real thoughts about this. What do you think? Because we also need your help, because you could see that we had all very different points of view, very different perspectives. We have a common goal, but we are approaching it from a very different way. We have here universities, foundations, different kinds of organizations, private, public organizations, and which I think is also very rich, and it helps us to really be complementary to each other, to approach the topic in a creative way. At the end, sometimes it's about creativity. So the floor is for you, it's all yours. I don't know if maybe the professors here wants to mention something you want to hear from the students, and maybe you want to say something before. And Steve, or after? Okay, so they are going to listen to you. And okay, raise your hands, or I will point you to raise it. Okay.
No, I just wanted to congratulate you, because I was really amazed for your level, and not only the level of English you have, but your level of your knowledge of Europe, and I was really amazed of that. And only one thing, I was only one concerned. Talking about the leaders, you know, with them and the European leaders and all that, have you noticed that none of us said a woman, the name of a woman, of a woman leader, and we are a lot here. So I think this is something we have to work on. So that's it, it's a comment.
Okay, so maybe you have to say something about that. I remember someone mentioned Angela Merkel, so.
I think at this moment it is quite unique that at least 2 of the big countries are led by a woman. Not only Merkel, but also in Britain. Almost in the United States. So if you look at the number of women in politics, I think they're doing quite well also in the leadership in the politics. What is more of a concern to me is that in business, it's far worse. And there are not many women in business leadership. And of course, this is also something which is very important to get it on.
No, that's all. We should young people should talk about the young leaders, because there are a lot of women here, there are a lot of women. So that's it.
Yeah, we had a great program last year with McKinsey for women in leadership. And the biggest problem, of course, is as old as nature. Most women who are really in the line to the top of the business stop when they get children. And it's very difficult. Then in the beginning, they start working again, but within 2 years, they stop. Or at least they go out of the top business line. And, well, we should change that. That also means that we must change the way we think about work. I mean, it's impossible to work 4 days a week now for a woman in the top firms. So if we cannot change that, we will never change this problem.
I think it is as well a problem of visibility, because if you're talking about the business world and about the cultural world, and if you're talking about Beyoncé, sorry, or she's a young lady and she has an audience of millions, so it was, I think, she needs a place in your presentation of leadership. And if you think about it, Madonna, for instance, she's older, she mixed culture and business. There are many, many women. Abramovich, for instance, she's a business lady. You have many, many ladies. It is, maybe you don't recognize it, maybe we don't recognize it, but there are many, many, many women. Thank you. Yeah.
You lead it. Someone else wants to say something?
It's another question of debate. So, how can we talk about Europe to these people, uneducated, unemployed, who live far from the big cities and capitals? Because I think it's very easy to feel part of Europe if you have an university major or degree, if you speak English, French, or German, if you have traveled a lot. But I think we have to sell or talk about Europe to everybody, not only to the most privileged people.
Okay, thank you. So how to approach people maybe in rural areas, isolated places around, so they really can feel Europe in their lives and they can feel identified with this project.
No, okay, the project itself is about these topics, so it's perfectly in line with what you are, your aspirations or what your desires. What I want just to say to
Use this one.
okay, thanks. What just underline a little passage from my own presentation, and I talked about the cultural management in cities and the fact that culture is still seen as something, as a parallel world, okay? There's like a virtual world, because the most real things are economics, I don't know, building, all the physical world, so-called intangible, is fine for, yes, to boost tourism or to make a place famous for any reason. But it's hard to find what I think is one of the great merits of this project, to present the culture as something can be not only presented and introduced to most people. I can say anybody, but most of them, but above all as a resource for improving the way we think. When it also involves also the question of women, also because culture is a great force of changing. This is very important, more important than all the economic benefits, or I say they are good. Okay, I'm not against. Also because I thought about the economic inequalities as a basis for the situation we are living. No, but culture is something really you can change people. Is a great force. And I saw many people coming from absolutely normal situations, families, and then achieving great aims just because they took the force of cultural change. It's very, very important. So I think that this should be the real aim of your aspiration. So say you want to bring the culture to anybody, to most of the people. Yes, but not just as something you are giving them, but something you are offering them to think over. Say, okay, this is a tool. Use it, with me and discuss. Okay, not something I already have, is just ready-made and just, okay, this is for you. Okay, this is my opinion, but of course.
Hello? Yeah, so thank you. Now I can use this one, and Steve is going to take the floor now. And I want also to ask Inger, because festivals maybe is a solution for this too. Steve?
There is a tendency, I must admit, only since 10 years, probably, that the rediscovery of cultural heritage outside of the cities. And Netherlands government has put, also driven by the more conservative government, I must admit, has driven a lot of attention and money to enormous volunteer projects which are run by locals to rediscover and renovate this heritage and to rediscover the immaterial heritage. So in fact, citizens are capable to find out where they live, what the value is in the area they are settled, and what the history is of these artifacts that they come across. And they feel that they could give a new life to that. And therefore you need a little bit of money, but this is a new tendency in most Western European cities. There is a network of Europa Nostra, which is paying a lot of attention to that. And we had invited here, but they couldn't come, the artistic management of Leeuwarden Cultural Capital this year. I think they got the title of Cultural Capital because they had a majority of projects which were concentrating on, making the inhabitants of very, very small villages aware of the fact that they have a special value amongst them and they can use it for all kinds of purposes. And the most striking example is that in Frisian country, Friesland, which was an independent county, every village of 200, 300 people had a church. So in this province, now province, are hundreds of churches, very small churches, but churches. Of course, none of them is used for religious practices. And under the Cultural Capital Project, there was money to collect as many volunteers as possible around an artist they could choose to revitalize the church as meeting point. And this was one of the most successful ingredients. Of course, Leeuwarden Cultural Capital was not responsible for the follow-up. There should be continuity, and that is at the moment not understood. So I was there in a discussion and asking to the very successful volunteer initiators, and what after this year you have fantastic experience. You have found out that your church is needed for community building and for all kinds of exchanges. Now you have to close the door again. So there was no strategy and there was no tactics. So that, I would say, the biggest challenge for you, if you are involved in such things, start thinking about the longer term before the success is there and you have to close down because of success. But authorities, also in Germany, and especially in the former East Germany, are very keen on this kind of initiatives. Of course, because they are not political, but they are very fruitful for raising awareness that they belong to a heritage which has a future, which is Europe.
Yeah, of course, festivals have an enormous platform to. They're always related to the community and the civil society, and I think even more than maybe cultural institutes, because they're limited in time and place, and you can really have a theme or match your festival to who is living in your community. But it starts with the awareness of knowing about your city or your region, or and knowing who is your audience again, and to see how you can change that and involve the people who don't feel included or don't feel that it is for them or don't feel that they belong there. And within the network that we have, there are many festivals who take place in small regions or on islands or on where they really work with the community and on all levels, not only in the artists but also in the volunteers they work with or the staff. Or so you have so many levels. The people who deliver the food, where you can include people. I think. Also, to get back to what Steve was saying earlier, it's a little like what we do with the Festival Academy is also to have the feeling that you have a responsibility to educate these people to think about these things. Because for me, it's all about, again, being aware of it before you can start changing certain things, and to have a discussion about that and see examples of how other festivals do that. One of the trends that I see a lot also is that they go out on the streets, because people don't feel welcome in the opera or don't feel welcome in the venues that exist for such a long time, which are visited by certain people. So it's literally breaking down the walls, you know, stepping outside with your festival to reach out to these people that are on the streets or on the playgrounds, and to make links with other sectors as well, to make links with, I mean, this is something that has been done, but with business also, to invite people. It doesn't always work, it's not always successful. A lot of the times the empty seats in a theater are because all the people of the bank that have been invited for free are not coming, or things like that. But to look for possibilities that there are, to work together with schools. I think that's also so important to, as a festival, to go and see which are the institutes or the social movements or whatever who you can link up to, who can help educate and get the information or what you're trying to do, so people can get to know it. I think that's the thing, because people are a lot of the times afraid, as we have said again. So.
Yeah. And I should add to all this also about the role of the new projects, for instance, initiated by the Council of Europe, the European Cultural Roots. If you can see, European Cultural Roots are not initiated in big cities. They are initiated at local level. Our route, the Charles V route, was initiated here. It's a little town, 800 inhabitants. And look how big it became. And look how people really feel part of European projects and how it creates an European identity. I mean, the mayor from this little town, Quacos de Yuste here, who is in charge of 800 inhabitants, has traveled all around Europe and even in Latin America, fostering this European culture identity. So it's the opposite way of doing the things. It's the little towns, it's the municipalities that also play a role. Because it's also about that. It's not how we can approach the municipalities, but also and citizens, but how can we wake up the interest of municipalities in rural areas and citizens everywhere so they become active partners building Europe. This is about, don't wait for the others to do the things for you. Give them the tools so they become the stars of the project. That is what is behind this kind of projects. That is the link between culture, European identity, and citizenship, at least in my opinion. And you raise a topic, maybe you want to comment, but I leave the topic also because I would like to know, what do you think about the involvement arts should have on developing more democratic societies? I give you an example, a painter, a writer, a musician, who is famous or not, but who is creating, should be more engaged on the society to foster these democratic values, to fight for democracy, or should just be working on his artwork to make beauty things and that's it? So I just launching a question that I think there is different opinions.
No, I just wanted to add one little thing, because there are, of course, also tools from the European Commission that can help in bringing about this European identity of festivals, like the EFE label that we have, like the Europe for Festivals, Festivals for Europe, is really, I mean, there are now, it's like a Michelin guide of festivals, but what we noticed is that it did not make such a difference for big festivals, but it made a huge difference for small festivals. There's a small festival on the Azores, for example, and they can use this label to step to their mayors and city councils to say, like, hey, we have this EFE label, and all of a sudden there is an interest, but also to outside to have like this a sort of proudness, you know, of what exists in Europe on the level of festivals, which you can also use at a certain point to bring about this, the values of the Union, I think, yeah.
Okay, I want also to have the opinion, maybe there is any opinion to this question or to these comments from the, here? Yeah. First the floor to the students.
I think we all have the responsibility to be engaged in order to develop the society. It doesn't matter in which field, but in the one that we are more engaged. But the artists, they have a big duty with this issue because they have voice and they can take a lot of people behind them. So I think they have the responsibility to be engaged.
They are natural leaders in some way. They have this leadership. Mm-hmm. They have to use it. That is your opinion. Do you all think in the same way?
Well, I think artists have more responsibility. Maybe public persons have more responsibility than unknown people, because you are always sharing your message. But I also think that art must be free. So if the artist just want to make something, but he or she is not talking about something in particular or giving any message, I think it's also fair, and I think it's also, it could be also understood as and entertainment.
Okay. More comments? Yes.
Just, I'll be very short. There are, in my opinion, there are two ways to be engaged in this sense. One is the traditional way. We are from the 70s, so the explicit engagement. So, for example, there is the museum all over. You can imagine something more old-fashioned than a museum. So, it's impossible to think that a museum could be really a social movement. But it happened in Rome many years ago, but not so many years ago. It happened that there was 200 families of refugees who were actually squatters in an abandoned factory. They were to be expelled, but a group of artists and a former museum director generated the idea to make the factory a museum. So they couldn't be expelled, and they were the performers along with the artists convened for this. It worked. People went there as a real museum, so visiting, and then this is a direct engagement. But I want to say something, because in the case of cultural roots, for example, the most important thing is the idea that culture is a force. There's a natural and unconscious engagement we have in the moment. For example, an artist is changing the sensibility. Changing the sensibilities, it means changing the way we interact. So it's naturally political as engagement. Even if he or she doesn't say a word of direct engagement, but is acting politically because it's changing the sensibility of the public. So I think this is very important. And this is also why an initiative like Culture Roots is working. Because they say, we are not really, we are working for the framework, but it's people acting as a first force of engagement. And they just running their business, restaurants, hotels. But in the meantime, they also are contributing to someone which is more than themselves. I just want to underline this. It was a very, very beautiful idea of a philosopher, Simon Don. He says, any of us is more than himself or herself. We are always more than ourselves. This is important, and artists work on this, I think. So I finished. I wanted to be short.
I would like to give two examples of artists who were initiators of citizenship and action and revolution. I love opera. I'm a fan of the opera. So if you look at how we lost Belgium, there was an opera in Brussels, The Stupid of Portici, and after that, the people went out, there was a revolution, and bye-bye to Holland. Yes, that's how Belgium started. See, they used to be ours, but we lost it. And we lost it through art. Let's go to Paris, the French Revolution. What's the connection between Beaumarchais, Mozart, and the French Revolution? Le Beaumarchais and le Notes de Figaro, they mock le système féodal. So, and also I learned from Steve that the connecting the East and the West Europe has been initiated also from artists. Look at Havel. So I think there can be found many, many, many examples in which artists are taking the lead. And it can go up to revolution. And that's citizenship, that's active citizenship.
Okay. No, and they are not paid as much as politicians. That's right. That's right. Okay. More comments on this, so we jump into another topic. You are raising your hand? Yes?
It's like a suggestion. I don't know if it's... We've. Okay. Thank you very much. We said that as citizens, we also have to give something. So I want to know, after this series of conference and debates, I want each of us to think, to reflect on what can we as individuals, this afternoon, tomorrow, in a week time, maybe 1 month, or what are we going to do to promote, to foster European values? What is our initiative? Because I know many people are already doing it.
Hello, I have a proposal that we were talking about that. Why not? We could do an European initiative for the European Commission in order to culture, education will become a competence unique from the European Union. I know it's very, very difficult because we have to write a great project. Then the European Commission said that it's okay for including in the proposal of European citizen initiative, but why not dreaming? This is one step. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. More comments? Maybe you can also answer your partners. I'm taking notes of.
No. Well, I have a question. I would like to go back to the topic leadership and Europe. And it's that when I read about the 20th century leaders, as for example, I don't know, Mitterrand, Kohl, Margaret Thatcher, it's I feel powerful and strong leadership, regardless they're from the right or left, it doesn't care. But now in the recent times, when I listen to, for example, I don't know, Macron or Rajoy or Zapatero, Sarkozy, all of them, I feel something softer. Even, for example, when I listen to or watch Angela Merkel, that might be the most powerful leader, even much more than all from the 20th century. I don't see a big leadership. So I would really appreciate a technical answer, but also can be a political one.
Okay, thank you. I think we already have 3 topics. So what can we do? That is the first one as students of this course. Later on, once the course will finish, in maybe tomorrow, maybe in 1 week, maybe 2 months, maybe in 1 year, but what can we do? The other thing is to create an European initiative to include culture as a political, I will sign it, as a political as European policy. And then it's about the nowadays leadership, okay? Do we start with the last one?
I can first answer on the question of the lady in the back on the initiatives. I'm looking at Steve. What about making a prize? The student sitting here, coming with the best idea, will have a free trip to Cusack next time. Is that something we can do, Steve?
Something they can wait.
Yes, so we wait your proposals, let's say maximum 4 months. You have time to come up with a real good proposal. And we will be the judge. Miguel, Abdul, and Linda, and Frederic, the team sitting here. We will be the judge, and the winner will have a free trip to Cusack. Yes?
No, because our partner, so the colleague of Jan in Cusack, is Jody Jensen. She is the boss of the Institute for Social and European Studies in Cusack, our official partner. But she is also the chair of the Jean Monnet chair, one of the few, not so many, in Europe. So she has excellent connections with, say, influential people in the European bureaucracy. So if we could convince Jody, who is American, by the way, that the prize will be handed to her, she will hand out the prize as one of the extra activities of the chair of Jean Monnet in Hungary. Then we could support it and send out mails to our people, our friends in European Parliament, and ask for a meeting. That the initiators could have 10 minutes to speak for the Commission in the European Parliament. That could be feasible eventually.
Eventually.
Perhaps.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Why not? No, but I think it's a good idea. I mean, I like the idea. I told you I will support it because I think we need it. I really think we need it. And I think we have to go in a strategic way. It's not just like we are going to launch a Facebook call to. Sometimes it works, but I don't think for a topic like that it will work. It's something you have to explain. You have to develop very well the arguments why culture should be an European policy. But maybe this is a, let's say, medium-term homework where we can support you on developing those ideas, as you say. That so I think it's a good idea to start in this way, like with this contest, where you, those who feel this change is needed, can maybe send a proposal with the arguments why do you think that culture should be an European policy, or we should give more power to culture. And from there, once we'll have the right arguments, we can maybe elaborate a strategy all together. And I make the connection with the first question, what can we do? So that is a good start. What can we do? Because sometimes people come to this kind of summer courses and they just left home, they get their certificate, and that's it. I got some knowledge, I will use it or not, but when I see this engagement, I feel very happy, first of all. Secondly, you have to become active citizens, promoting the value and power of culture to foster European integration, to create and to strengthen European identity. You have to take it with you everywhere, everywhere, in the school, at home, at work. This is very important. Take it with you like a philosophy. When you want to fight for something like that, you can do and you can use it anywhere. Culture is a mainstream policy. You can talk about culture in rural areas. You can talk about culture and fight against inequalities. You can talk about culture and agriculture, because there is a lot of culture in the agricultural field, even if you don't believe that, in design, in many different aspects. You can talk about culture and fashion and design itself. You can talk about culture and defense. So everything is related with culture in some way. Culture, education, everything is related. Philosophy, how we do this, why. Do we have a better way to do it? You need creativity. To have creativity, you need culture. So take it with you everywhere and be ambassadors of this philosophy. That is what you can do. And when you see the opportunity and you have an idea that could fit, try to develop it. Look for similar ideas, because, well, there is always similar ideas, and look for the way to put it somewhere. It's like when we started to work with this charge the feet route. At the beginning, it was something very local. We wanted to develop something very local, but suddenly we realized that it could be bigger, and we started to fight for that. We start to convince other people. And that is the second step. You take it everywhere, you find people that think like you join forces, you work together. That is the way of doing the things, in my opinion.
I just realized that you and me are asked to come up with a workshop proposal for the conference of Solve for Europe in April 99, and one of the themes, if I recall, is should there be a culture policy for Europe? So if this group of initiators is ready to present a small piece of paper, we could support the idea that Berlin invites one or two or three to present it in a workshop.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. So you have to book in your agendas those who want to participate in this contest. 19th. It's 19th to 23, or it was 19th of April. Because within this project we'll have a Berlin conference with the initiative Solve for Europe. Solve for Europe, we didn't talk here about this, but I will explain you briefly. Solve for Europe is, let's say, a kind of association which has no formal legal entity, but is behind a cultural institution.
It has the only existing European legal form, EEIG, European Economic Interest Grouping. So you can start EEIG now, because it doesn't cost anything, but you have to go to send the papers to Madrid to get a stamp.
Yeah. But this is an initiative that was started by a cultural foundation in Berlin, the Kulturstiftung. It is because the name in German doesn't come to me. It was
an initiative from Richard von Weizsäcker, the former Bundespräsident, and former president of Germany.
But the institution who is supporting it behind in Berlin is the...
That is a private person. Yeah. It's a Mäzenas.
Yeah, I know, but that is the other institution, the Kulturstiftung.
Ja, Stiftung.
Kultur.
Stiftung Kultur.
Kultur Berlin, or
Stiftung Kultur Berlin oder so.
Yeah, something like that. So well,
Stiftung Zukunft Berlin. Okay. So, Foundation for the Future of Berlin. That is, and that is entirely financed by a private person, a former industrial, successful German guy who went to the States to make money, came back, and became one of the most interesting collectioners of visual arts, and wanted to do something for the citizens of Berlin. And that was giving a lot of money to a few idiots who are our friends, and they are putting it in fact, civic initiatives related to Europe.
Yeah, and one of these initiatives is called Solve for Europe. You can search it on the internet. And it's about people at the end, because it's a group of people. We have this person behind it to support it in an economic way. We have this foundation, which is in some way also giving the structure to meet and organize big conferences, but the people behind it is people running the ideas of this initiative is people who really believes on European integration through culture, because culture is the leitmotiv. So we organize every year the Berlin conference, which is taking place every year on the 9th of November to commemorate the fall of the wall of Berlin. So we had this big conference, and there we meet together people from the cultural sector, intellectuals, and politicians at local, regional, national, and European level. And we put them together to, let's say, debate about the future of Europe through culture. So in some way we try to pass this message of the importance of culture, promoting European integration. Just it's a very summarized way, but you can look a little bit on the internet. You can participate in this initiative too, Solve for Europe, which is an initiative where the citizens are the stars of the initiative. It's normal people like you and me that really loves culture, and they really think that culture can be the solution to many of the problems we are having in Europe. So they will organize this meeting also in April. So we already closed the circle. We had this initiative of the culture like a European policy. You make your homework, you send us a proposal, we evaluate them, we have a prize for the winner, and we try to organize also a presentation in Berlin conference on 19th April. Okay? So we already got something from here.
Can I add something? I have a question for you, actually, because you're here now like 40 people, you've spent 5 days together, you know each other, you know, so you're not alone in what you want to do or what you want to achieve. So my question is a little bit, we learned from Jan that we need to get organized, you know, so what are you going to do? Is there any plan how you will stay in touch? Is there a Facebook group? Is there a LinkedIn group or whatever? Or are you going to share documents? If you want to make a proposal like that, for example, I think you need to identify a leader amongst you or somebody who is going to drive it. And I can give you an example, if I may, shortly, but in the atelier in Johannesburg, for example, we made a toolkit on sustainable festivals with the group. We divided in 5 groups and they worked on that for 3 days, something like that. And we had also a system, they got a prize, we did a voting, and we had the participants vote, so the popular vote, and we had a jury vote. And we had a different result. The jury voted actually for, we had a long discussion about it, but we looked again at what the assignment was. So to the result, it was closest to the assignment. And the vote from the participants was actually the project that was best marketed, let's say. And from those two, so those 2 winning groups, we identified drivers from both, and they put that together as a toolkit, and they've been working on that. And we invited one of the participants from Johannesburg to present that in Gothenburg. But it's a challenging, you really need to get organized and to dedicate yourself to that in one way or another, to make that happen. And it's like an open source document, so it keeps on continuing to be developed. So it's a question to you, like how do you want to continue tomorrow with what you have here, the connections and the network, and how you want to deal with that?
Okay, who wants to answer?
Who wants to be the leader?
Is any candidate to be the leader? I know they have already a WhatsApp group, so that is
good start.
It's a good start. But maybe you can develop it a little bit more.
Maybe also what is the Yuste Foundation facilitating?
We facilitate the WhatsApp group. No, but we can work further in the field. I will be very, very pleased to help as much as I can. So you want to take the lead for the Facebook page to create something where people can join? Well, I guess if you are here, it's because you are interested in the topic, not just for the certification, no? Is anyone just here for the certification? I have it here. I can give it to you and you leave. But if you are here, just because you are interested in the topic, so try to develop it a little bit more. I mean, here we just create a great opportunity to do something new together. I must confess, I'm very impressed you took the idea of the launching this initiative because we have been discussing that in many forums, and in most of them, people were saying, okay, forget about that. I mean, you are talking bullshit. That was the reaction.
For this project, we are building up a database as underlining for the 3 years. So we will put all the videos in it, the interviews, but also other material that we collect from past events. So maybe it is wise to connect these kind of things, so that we build up a real database with information and texts and things like that. Let's think about it.
Yeah, because they can also contribute by writing articles. So the project offers you also, for your academic, some of you maybe are making a doctoral or are thinking on going deeper into a topic like that. So the project offers you also an opportunity to publish and share your thoughts, your reflections with other people. So don't forget about that. So, should we go on a little bit because we still have some time? More questions from this side? No one asked me something? Yeah? Okay, good.
Hi, everyone. Well, it's too hard. In your personal opinion, what kind of cultural heritage must be get over from the European identity? Because we're always talking about the things that we can be remember still, but if we can change our culture, what kind of things we want to change? So, what's your personal opinion? Not a political topic, but your personal opinion.
The other micro is there. Okay. Think about that. They will answer now. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a comment who has to do a little bit about the cultural initiative of young people. So Clara, she doesn't want to say, but I want to say because it's a fantastic project. He's having his. You coordinated it, or you are a writer, right? In a European magazine for young people called Café Babel. And you have to take a look at it. It's fantastic. I was looking at it this morning, and it's young people from Europe, all these kind of people who's writing in how many languages? 6 languages. And they are talking about culture. And they say, okay, but we are writing for free, and we have a problem for financing. And Europe has to know about that. You have to give money to these kind of initiatives of young people writing to do great things. It's not, it's very well done. And it's a professional, it's Café Babel. And it's a very professional magazine, and I will pay for it. So it's this, why Europe don't have the means to get money for that? They're doing things, these people, and they don't have the money for that. So.
Not anymore. We had to give up writing and translating for a while, for 3 months, we'll see, because there is no funding nowadays. We are looking for that because, as you know, journalism is in a deep crisis, and when you start to do voluntary in order to a future that never arrives, you have to think about and stop it. Is that? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your support.
No, but it's kind of initiatives that really it's helping culture, because if you take a look at it's like, really, you don't have money for that? It's very well done. Why do you give money for, I don't know, for sport team or whatever, or for festival or for whatever, not for these kind of initiatives?
Yeah, and I know Café Babel. I was a very good friend of the director in Brussels a long time ago, and then there were some changes. And I know there was also an office in Paris. They said the office. No, it was, I don't remember his now, but he was Spanish origin. He was previous, it was like 10 years ago, because the initiative, yeah, Fernando. The initiative was created a long time ago, and it's also a way of creating awareness and public opinion about Europe, and also in a very fresh and original way. And well, I know it's having, well, it was always going through a bad moment. I mean, it wasn't ever
like culture,
like culture in general, and it's really a pity that we don't support. Abraham Deswan was talking about this creation of identity, like with artists talking at European level or intellectuals talking at the European level. Here you have a platform of young people talking about Europe at European level, but we do support this kind of voices. So that is true. That is a pity, but well, it's another consideration to take into account for our final report, why Europe doesn't support this kind of initiatives that are creating public.
It is true, yeah. But take a look at it, really, it's very good.
Okay, do you have the time to think about the question? Yeah, a little bit. Could you repeat the question?
Okay. What kind of things from the cultural heritage or your cultural identity must be changed or get over?
I should say any of them, but what kind of things from our culture?
Culture is not something you can judge just. You can sort it out and choosing. No, this I like. This I not like. So, because it's a part of our collective past. Even if we didn't participate in some of the events that took, when we were talking about Charles V, of course, it's a controversial figure, as a monarch of the 16th century. We have the same idea of society, of the violence, the use of violence, but we are in so many ways even more ruthless today than in the 16th century for other aspects. So, it's important having a good conscience of the moment, the historical moment you are, and what you are, your places, to be to change things, but not it's not something you can do it. I think just selecting what you like, you don't like, because things are not in itself. Like, of course, we have something we can reject. We want to reject the concentration camps, but it's part of our past. If you deny it, it's better. It's worse. You have to accept the idea that Europeans did this. Otherwise, I think it becomes a nightmare, not a culture. So this is my idea. Sorry.
Why were you thinking in this question?
Because as a leaders, we shape and reshape the future for the next generation. So we want to reinforce some values instead of others. I mean, it's a design, so it's a personal commitment with some root. So in that way, you think, okay, I have a choose, I have a pick, one over others. That's why.
Yeah, now I have the impression that I do understand a little bit what you mean. My experience too is that you can't think of changing something if you are not confronted directly with something that gives you the possibility to ask questions. So what probably has to change by interaction through you with someone else, who has the idea that every truth is absolute, obsolete, and non-discussable. So take the example, very popular example. The European Union is not respecting the sovereignty of my country. So I want to collect votes for opting out, because we are not free to decide upon our own country future. This is a widespread, say, slogan and also conviction. So it is quite easy to find someone who stands for that in your own direct surrounding. And what I like to do is to ask the person, oh, that could be a good idea. Can you explain me how you came to this conclusion? And giving the people the possibility to explain you where these obsolete obsessions come from. In this particular example, I say so. To be very consequent, you shouldn't take the public traffic anymore. Because at the very moment you enter the bus, you are giving away your sovereignty for some time, because otherwise you have to walk. And even if you want to walk, you are giving away your sovereignty to decide yourself when you should cross the street. But you have to wait for the cars. Who is taking that decision? Not me. So probably it makes sense all these questions to evaluate in personal discussions. So what I think is most threatening is the unwillingness or the incapacity to live with unanswered questions. Europe is about dealing with non-solved questions to be solved through communication between 400 million people who have their own opinions, and therefore they build gremia and they build networks. So it is a mushawara. It is a Polish political gathering. Everybody has a say in it. But finally, we do one step backwards and two steps forward, sometimes two backwards and one forward. But finally, more and more, the consciousness that you were part of a solution is growing. So that is what you and me have to do, and make fun out of it, because at the end it's really funny to try to discuss about the argumentation between this sloganism that is very common in populist circles.
Yes. Maybe I can also, well, I probably won't answer your question, listening to Steve with a completely different approach, but I always try to make things more clear for myself. I cannot think that complex as some of the others, so I try to separate a lot of things. And I have a little bit of a problem with the word change. Is it a change of culture we want? I mean, what is the culture? The culture means you want to belong to something, and it has a basis. And this basis can be in art, history, or whatever. But looking at leadership, looking at your SQ, why do you want to belong to something? And I think this was the very first question from that gentleman in red over there. How do we reach all the people, and how will we change their mind? So if we look at sports, I live in a town you never heard about, Breda. So I like the football club, NAC, because that's our football club. But I'm also a fan of Ajax in Amsterdam, and I'm also a fan of the Dutch national team. And within this month, we will play the Ryder Cup in golf, and then I'm a fan of Europe against the United States. So do I belong to one of them, or is my culture in all of them? So in my opinion, the change we have to undergo is that we also get more of a belonging to Europe. That doesn't leave out that I also have a feeling of belonging to Holland. So, and looking of the leaders we need for this, you always get the leader you need. You choose the leader which at that moment is needed. Russia needs a strong leader at this moment. They lost their complete role in the world. So they need a strong leader. They choose Putin. In Holland now for many decades, prosperity is quite high. Well, so what kind of leader did we choose in Holland? We chose a mediator already 3-4 times in a row. They do not have a very firm opinion. They go with the flow and they try to unite everyone. Does Europe need a real strong leader or a leader to unite us? As long as we are not clear about the objectives, as long as we are not clear what kind of culture we want and what will unite our people, you cannot define what kind of leader you need. Yeah?
Thank you.
But I think that sometimes the kind of leader you have is not the one you need. It's like I was saying, America doesn't need Trump, I assure you.
In that case, in the end, people will see it and they will change the leader. And the time always decides what kind. Hitler wouldn't have stand a chance in other circumstances. And it always happens, you choose the leader, at that moment you feel, hey, he's really touching me in my SQ. And this is what the country needs, and this is our ambition, our passion, our drive, there we go to. And we choose our leader on this. Why does Germany is the only country at this moment with a rather strong leader? Because they had to unite East and West Germany. So they needed a little bit more guidance. Probably in the future it will be different. Okay.
Yeah, I very agree with him. And I wanted to add to what he said, that we should not approach to populism as if people are wrong or people doesn't know enough to choose well, but maybe they have their own reasons to choose what they choose and why they choose it. And many times I think in this kind of debates, which we are maybe far from different circumstances, we do not get the idea that why people choose Trump maybe in the United States or other kind of leaders that we would not choose in any case.
Do you think, Jan, that it is the free choice of people, or that the media are playing a very important role in choosing this kind of leaders? And I don't mean the free media, but I mean the other media and the social media. I think they play enormous part in this.
Yeah, here we are talking about manipulation and so on. And I would like just to raise a topic, but we don't have much time for discussion, but we have also to consider first of all, I agree very much that we have the leaders maybe we deserve or we need for that moment. But maybe it's better to say we deserve, because at the end it's a question of who is choosing that leader, because we also can be wrong when choosing our leaders. We choose them, we think it's what we need, but we get wrong, and we can see that, and we have many examples. But it's also, we come back to the origins of this course, which is citizenship participation. The President of the United States, which is the most powerful person in the world right now, to say so, is chosen by 13% of the population living in the United States. So let's say, I don't know, in millions, 4, 5 million, 6 million people, who is choosing the most powerful person in the world. Why? Because 75% of the people doesn't vote. So it's about citizenship, engagement with democracy. Just let's think about this. And we finish with the final remark from Steve, and we go on to the last part of the course.
Fantastic. Coming back to your observation, and I underline again that we ourselves can do a lot. It's not for the first time that at a birthday party, a person who also has a glass of beer starts talking to me about a political situation in the Netherlands. And last time there was this lady who said to me, we will win, the next Prime Minister of the Netherlands will be Geert Wilders. He is the leader of the second biggest political party, and from a populist nature. And I asked her, okay, probably he will win the elections, but however could he become Prime Minister? And she really thought that the person from the party that has won the elections, becoming from 2-1, that this person automatically will be the Prime Minister, and that this party automatically will have the majority. And in a country as the Netherlands, I think you have 15 parties or something. So she didn't realize that. So come back what Miguel said, we ourselves are the source of creating better insight in the rules of our own democracy. And their cultural organizations, educational organizations, must do much more, because they have audiences, they have pupils, they have a public sphere. And Mario yesterday said to me, why are so many academic professors in Italy not opening their mouths? They have the brains, they are trained to use their brains, but all of a sudden they don't know how to talk about the things that make Italy a democracy. It is not agitation, it is not activism. It's simply taking part in society. So we have to start this.
Okay, thank you very much. We could go on, but we already passed a little bit the schedule we had. Well, it's true that we started a little bit late this morning, but I think we can finish the debate here, because we have to have lunch, people have to come back home, and they have to think about this. Those who wrote questions to put in the debate, try to develop them. And we have this platform to publish things, so we'll be very welcoming your reflections for our work in the project. So it will be useful. So try to do something about that. So with this, we can finish this debate. We are going to arrange a little bit the room for the handing over of the certifications. So thank you very much to all of you.